This is the temporary shortage of pigs in blankets at Wetherspoons. It's a worrying sign, just 1 week into Boris Johnson's New Britain, and it's not just the homeless that don't even have blankets. Cheer up. Get Brexit done! All disputes with disappointed customers at Wetherspoons have now been resolved. There was just one major sticking point, the carpet.
That's very tacky.
In other news, a Michigan family has been passing down a 141-year-old homemade fruitcake as a family heirloom. According to the Associated Press, Guinness World Records don't have an entry for the world's oldest fruitcake. So, Stanley Johnson, get on that phone. Ian and Emma, take a look at this.
Oh, right, yes. We're back to this.
The tiny violin.
Tiny violin. Ah, yes, that's Zach.
Going into the House of Losers. the House of Lords.
This is the fallout from the election.
Yes, this is the aftermath of Boris Johnson's resounding election win.
Zach Goldsmith lost in Richmond, but I think Boris has proved that the first thing you do as a proper people's government is appoint an old Etonian friend of yours into the House of Lords, Nicky Morgan, who was sitting over there last week saying, I've left politics. No, she's a lady now. Baroness Morgan, so she's in the cabinet.
Well, she's Culture Secretary, who will be presiding over the BBC.
Yes.
Will she?
Yes, she's
She
the Culture
sounds brilliant. Yes, Nicky Morgan said she was leaving politics to spend more time with her young son, but on Monday she was back in government. Though, in my experience, one weekend with the kids will do this. She's no longer an MP, so to enable her to remain in the cabinet, she's been made a dame. Appropriately enough, did you see Boris's panto performance in the Commons on Tuesday? Let's have a look.
This Parliament is going to put the withdrawal agreement Friday in the pop dipping, as we say in Wales. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if you can guess what this Parliament is going to do once we put the withdrawal agreement back. We're going to get Brexit done.
I did want to play a drinking game on Newsnight every time a Tory MP said, get Brexit done, but I realised I'd be shit-faced before we finished.
That would massively improve Newsnight, wouldn't it?
It was nice to see Jacob Rees-Mogg sitting up straight, wasn't it?
Yes.
Just that. We haven't seen him the whole campaign. Certain people just disappeared during the campaign, on both sides.
Yes.
Well, he underwent a medical and they examined his DNA and they realised he was a total tosspot. with a hint of hazelnut.
Laura Koonsberg had a documentary about the Brexit election on this week. Have a look.
My son looks remarkably like you. I'd just like you to look.
Oh, nice to see you.
Looks like you could be your love child.
Thank you.
Moving on to Labour, Jeremy Corbyn has, of course, accepted total responsibility for Labour's defeat, except for all the things that were nothing to do with him. And he's compelling all Labour MPs to vote against Boris's Brexit deal this week, just so all those ex-Labour voters don't forget.
He said that he won the argument.
Yes, he did.
That was his description of what happened in the election.
He said in The Guardian that despite losing, he had won the argument. The argument being, who is Britain's least electable man?
Who are the two gangs in the Labour rivalry?
They're called Momentum, which is the Corbynite one, and Progress, which is the other.
Like it's The Apprentice. Oh, my God, they've given themselves stupid names.
There is a serious side to this. The divisions in the Labour Party gave Cameron a much easier time on Wednesday than he should have had, because much of the debate was actually focused about the internal battles in the Labour Party, whereas it should have been focused on dismantling what was a threadbare case for bombing in Syria.
According to one embattled Labour MP, every day is like opening an advent calendar of shit. What did one of Corbyn's most loyal supporters, Diane Abbott, do in a shadow cabinet meeting?
Light an advent candle?
Be dangerous. According to the Sunday Times, Diane Abbott tried to do an impression of shadow education spokesperson Lucy Powell. One source told the Sunday Times she's no Mike Yarwood. The performance was so dire that Corbyn loyalist John Cryer considered voting for bombing just on the basis of her contribution.
We're going to grow our own food, according to Chris Grayling. Back to a diet of turnips, carrots and cardboard. Didn't do us any harm in the war, so we're going to have it again.
He said that Britain will succeed, come what may, and responding to warnings that a no-deal Brexit could cause food prices to rocket, he said that we'll just grow more here.
This idea that we're going to grow more food, people don't even make sandwiches anymore. It just hasn't been out of the house. People are too tired and depressed to even put cheese between bread. It's like people go, well, I'll just grow some quinoa and some carrots then. People will just die. We'll just won't eat.
Do you know, I'm positively upbeat compared to you. I think his point is that, you know, we can do it. We can forget, you know, currency. We can go back to barter system. We can exchange mud.
I think Chris Grayling's going full Ray Mears to prove his point. He's going to turn up to Parliament in a suit made of squirrels.
The election result and a massive Tory majority. So now Boris Johnson can get on with his Brexit deal, which he assures us is oven-ready, though he may have to wait before using that oven, as there are a lot of Labour candidates queuing up to put their heads in it. It's the biggest Tory majority since the days of Margaret Thatcher, who, of course, developed the philosophy of Thatcherism, whereas the only ism Boris has produced begins with a J. The Greens lost out in County Durham, where they'd really been banking on getting a vote from David Bellamy.
Dead people. Oh, gosh.
Yes.
The Greens managed to get one seat. Biggest climate crisis in history, one seat. Got to be something wrong with the system, hasn't there?
Absolutely. And I can trust this government to...
Poor Nicky, take a look at this.
Yes, Boris Johnson on a phone-in. Jeremy Corbyn, how many minutes left as leader? This is her new job. She's doing quite well there. He's about to go a little bit mad. There he is. And that's...
Christmas came early.
Everything's broken. So, yeah...
It's the last week of election campaigning, which really gripped the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gripped.
Evidenced by this clip.
Yeah.
Are you excited? No, not a bit.
That could have been me.
Where did Boris begin his final day of campaigning?
He was delivering milk in, I was going to say Leeds, but I could be wrong.
Yorkshire. Let's just say Yorkshire. Let's have a look.
Hi.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Mrs. Bonnet. Are you Mrs. Bonnet?
Yes, yes.
Hello, good
Oh,
morning.
I didn't realise there was going to be this many people.
I've come to deliver your milk, Mrs. Bonnet.
How many pints, missus? Is your husband in?
How many pints of milk has that poor woman got then?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of it.
They're obviously stockpiling there. They know something we don't.
Boris Johnson got into difficulties on his round.
He was ambushed by someone asking him for an interview.
That's right.
Which is, you know, absolutely appalling thing to ask of a man who wants to be Prime Minister. So he rightly went away and hid in a fridge.
Let's have a look.
I've just had a reaction here from one of the minders. OK, don't need to push, thanks very much.
On his face.
Wow.
That minder.
You're not getting near Boris. Prime Minister, will you come on Good Morning Britain and deliver on your promise to talk to Piers and Susanna? We're ready to go. We're live on ITV right now. Prime Minister, we have an earpiece in my pocket. You're more than welcome to come on. Mr. Johnson, while you have 5 minutes, you're live on Good Morning Britain. Could you talk to Piers and Susanna for me?
I'll be with you in a second.
Yeah, I have an earpiece here in my hands, ready to go. Taken inside, into the freezer. You've gone into the fridge.
He's got milk to get on and deliver. He's got customers waiting.
Then he shouldn't be in a fridge then, should he?
The days of accountability and asking people their opinion are over. You just hide from the questions you don't want to answer. You lie about the things that you want to do. And
then you get a stonking mandate.
Get a big...
What has Channel 4 News' Michael Crick alleged about Theresa May's campaign? It says a Conservative press officer has been refusing to allow questions to Theresa May unless they have prior approval to speak.
And this is in the Cabinet. You're not suggesting the questions in Mrs May's meetings are planted.
I'm not suggesting that at all.
Who is then?
Kirsty, have you been allowed to ask Mrs May a question?
Well, she keeps asking to come on, but we're being picky.
Oh. Other media outlets have said that they have no such problems, but Theresa May was heard to accuse someone at a recent factory visit. Have you got a pen in your hand? Are you a journalist? They said, no, this is a biro factory.
Yeah, no, it was extraordinary. I mean, I thought it'd be terribly boring, like most conference speeches, but it was just fabulous. And I know a lot of people who are probably nicer than me felt very sorry for her. But I thought it was very, very funny.
It's a bad sign when a cough suite goes down better than you do.
She coughed so much, it felt like she was going to start coughing insects, like an actual horror film.
But it's that moment when you're talking to someone who doesn't really believe what they're saying, and they're saying, yes, I'm really the person for the job. And everything's going very...
Coughing does not do well for female politicians. Her and Hillary Clinton, their colds have destroyed them.
Well, Ian Duncan Smith used to cough a lot. Do you remember? He was another successful Tory leader.
He never had it that bad, though.
No, you don't think so?
No, it's a sort of much lower-level cough-based problem. Theresa May took it to... I mean, she weaponised. That was quite incredible. I can't believe you didn't feel any sympathy for her at all. Not even a scintilla.
Oh, dear.
I did.
I think I'm coming across as a bad
It
person.
was awful. I only felt sorry for her because of Boris. I feel that that was such a bad day that it was almost a win for Boris, and I feel that's the only... So I feel like I hate him so much that you want her to have a better gig, you know. Why did she sack Boris?
She can't, can she, sack Boris?
Why?
Because if she sacks him, he gets to walk away from Brexit while simultaneously being able to claim that if he'd stayed in the government, it all would have gone much better than it's clearly going to go.
You know, she can't allow him the pleasure. It's like, you know, he's essentially an arsonist who wants to come back dressed as a fireman.
Yes.
Where's the fire? There was one of her... I mean, she's been accused of being robotic, so one of the Conservative backbenchers today was making the rounds in a TV studio saying she's made of very strong metal, which I thought was...
Well, people say that at a certain point a Prime Minister runs out of luck. It just happens to you when everything's going wrong.
Yeah. It's like the end. It's like the complete end. She's not so much as occupying the office of Prime Minister as haunting it.
I mean, again, it's difficult to make up, but the first letter is F, so it's an F off.
An F off. 15% of respondents to a YouGov poll said that the speech had gone well. 15, which there's no way that could just be the cabinet. 15% of people. 15% of people watched that and thought, yes, that's gone rather well. Which makes you wonder what it would take to lower that number from 15%. She could have stood there and melted like the witch at the end of The Wizard of Oz. She stood. 12% think it went rather well. She's a puddle on the floor. 10% still think it's gone rather well. It's 15%.
Are you sure that isn't just members of the Labour Party?
Looking at the whole Conservative election campaign, was it a debacle, a catastrophe, or a shambles? A catastrophe.
Oh, there was a lot of tossers involved.
All of those things.
All of those?
Absolutely all. It was the worst election campaign I think I've ever seen anybody run.
What, including yours to challenge Jeremy?
Thank goodness.
Sue him right now.
Mine didn't last as long as this did.
No, you...
And I didn't have Linton Crosby's extremely expensive advice.
No, clearly. So were you thrilled when the exit poll came out? Did you think, yes, Jeremy, you've proved me absolutely wrong. Well done.
I was thrilled. I think everybody was astonished on all sides. And I thought, well, I think I'll get down to the count and see what's going on.
Where were you?
Well, normally at the end of an election campaign, you dash home because you've been up for 17 hours, you've knocked on as many doors as you can, you're absolutely exhausted. You go home, you have a quick bath, you get your suit on, you turn on the telly to see what the exit poll is so you can see what the result's actually going to be, and then you digest that for a bit, and then you go to your own count to see what's happening.
How do you have a quick bath?
Well, you have to.
Baths take ages. The rest I understood, but the quick...
You go way back, you and Theresa,
We
don't
do,
you?
yeah. Once upon a time, we both had Rick Astley's haircut, and we stood for North West Durham in a very safe Labour seat
Well, let's
in
just
1992.
have a little look at you in happier times. Here you are in a synth pop duo in the 80s.
Yeah, see? Am I right or am I right?
Actually, Tim, you were in a band, weren't you?
Yes.
Tell us what's going on here.
So, that is Robert on the right and David on the left, and we were utterly, utterly dreadful.
Was that the name of the band?
No, yeah. Should have been. Anyway, we were terrible, but we had a great time.
There you go, which sort of sums up my life, really.
Everything.
Tim, you've been fighting hard to put the Lib Dems back on the map. Let's have a look at some footage from the Lib Dem party conference a few weeks back, just to see how well it's going.
It went very well.
Do you know which political party's having a conference here this week?
I don't know.
Have you any idea?
Couldn't tell you.
Really?
I didn't realise there was one. Is there? The TUC were here. I didn't hear.
Do you know which political party's got its conference going on here at the moment?
Yeah, that one there.
What do you think of them?
What do I think of them? Who are they?
It's going well. It's going well.
Good evening. Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Alexander Armstrong. In the news this week, there's evidence that now the election's over and done with, someone's got a lot of presents to wrap up for his generous Russian donors.
Not to mention all his children.
In Maidstone, one rookie reporter hasn't been told that the venom in Dominic Raab's spittle can be deadly. And as a last throw of the dice on the campaign trail, Jeremy Corbyn utters the magic words to summon up the legendary beardy man of Barnsley.
The Tories have had 9 years to fund our NHS properly.
On Ian's team tonight is a comedian who did Hispanic studies at university. Presumably he got a 2-1. Please welcome John Richardson. And with Paul tonight is the ex-Tory minister who voted Remain but is backing Brexit. The sort of dithering that may explain why she and Jeremy Corbyn are no longer in politics. Please welcome Nicky Morgan. And we start with the bigger stories of the week. Ian and John, take a look at this.
Oh, right, hang on, here he comes. 5 seats, that's optimistic. That's your own personal exit poll. And there's Boris and the blonde he's in love with himself. Well, didn't see that coming. Big win for Boris. Silence. Yes, but everyone a bit stunned. For those of us who stayed up all night, I think John Curtis just ruined it. And if you're going to tell us the result at 10 o'clock, why stay up? I had a friend who didn't watch at all, woke up and saw Boris Johnson saying, I won a big majority, and was delighted, because thought he was lying, obviously. And it had been a good night, but sadly, it wasn't true. And it does prove the old adage, you know, you can fool most of the people most of the time if you lie enough.
Good news for the Loch Ness Monster as well.
Good news for the Loch Ness Monster?
Yes, great news. It's been a great night for the Loch Ness Monster.
In what sense?
Well, because...
It's going to get Ruth Davidson to accompany it round the loch.
This is exactly right. If the SNP had reached 50 seats, Ruth Davidson had promised to swim naked in Loch Ness, and they only got 48. What did Boris say last night had given him?
Just a massive boner. Absolute stonk on.
He said in a speech it had given him a stonking mandate.
That used to be an aftershave, didn't it?
What's amazing, you have to look at it from Corbyn's point of view, the only warning we had, really, was all the times it's happened before and all the people who said this is exactly what would happen. So sometimes you've got to hold your hand up and say, who was to know? Apart from all the people who knew.
And literally everyone got it wrong. Even the most overexcited Tories thought they were going to get a few.
It's difficult for them to judge a system where it really should be... The number of MPs you have should be reflected by the number of memes that are retweeted on Twitter. Because up until 5 to 10, I thought this is going to turn out all right, you know.
Yeah, well, Twitter had a big Labour win.
Yeah.
But as so often with Twitter, they're wrong.
If you could just rotate your televisions for this. Here's the first one.
Beep.
Buzz.
Yes, that's a That's Jeremy Corbyn waving goodbye as his tenure as leader of the Labour Party is coming to a close. His watch is facing the wrong way, but he's saying goodbye, having sort of lost heavily at the last general election.
Yes, this is the very bad news for the Conservative Party that last week Jeremy Corbyn stood down as leader of the opposition. What did Corbyn finally admit to last week? Ian?
He admitted that he'd been right all along and that the country was now in a perfect socialist state in which the government paid everyone's wages, there were police on the streets arresting you for going outside, and it was what he'd always wanted. It was a pity it had taken a virus to do it, but apart from that, he'd been absolutely right all along.
How did Corbyn sign off his last PMQs as Labour leader?
He sent a letter to Boris Johnson which outlined his 5-point plan for what he thinks Boris Johnson should do, but there was only one problem with it. It had 6 points.
Well, he's not the only one in the party who can't count, is he? No.
Oh, someone's entered Miles's house.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I think someone's moving furniture. Yeah. I'll find out when this is over.
It's the bailiffs.
What will we all remember about Jeremy Corbyn?
The number of people who wouldn't let him finish?
Probably when he did this.
Private rented, poor lives.
Why are you remaining neutral?
Can I finish, please? Areas that have different views on it, as indeed...
So you bring Brexit voices in?
Can I finish? Thank you. I think we've fought a very good piece of opposition to what the government's been doing.
Leave voters, Jeremy. Leave voters may argue that they are betrayed.
Can I finish, please?
I think you have. With everything that's going on in the world, this is the story that's dominated the front page of the Morning Star. Jeremy Corbyn says the government's unprecedented financial bailout proves that he was right. Really, I don't remember him predicting a worldwide pandemic because some bloke in China ate a mongoose. Also, still in the race are Rebecca Long-Bailey and Lisa Nandy. Really, though, I thought they'd shut all the Nandys.
What are Nuttall's plans?
To hold the government to a hard Brexit. And
Yes,
if
that's
Mrs
what
May
Nuttall
at
said.
any point goes soft, Nuttall will be there.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
the motto. Don't go soft,
Yes.
Nuttall's watching.
We definitely want a hard Brexit. It's got to be hard to be good. Everybody knows that.
This is pornographic.
Any offers of panto this year?
Of course, there are the shockingly high EU immigration figures that have just come out.
Yeah, record EU immigration figures today.
They're all coming over! Oh, there's probably some in here, Suzanne! Take cover under the desk! Oh, my God! Strange accents and everything!
You see, this is the fundamental misunderstanding about UKIP. We're not anti-immigration at all. We just want to... It's true, it's true.
You see, that's the problem with the message. It hasn't really got across. His basic problem is he's confusing the role of President of America with 1970s light entertainment comedian at the BBC. And the fact that everyone's tolerated him up to this moment, suddenly they've said, well, look, Donald Trump, he's awful. How could we have told? And he's been campaigning for months and months, and we've never had any indication that he might be thoroughly ghastly in any number of ways. I mean, how are we to know? This is unfair.
At what point was it not ludicrous that the presenter of The Apprentice in America could become the Commander-in-Chief? It's like saying the presenter of Have I Got News for You could become Foreign Secretary.
I'm sure that loyalty will be rewarded.
Sorry? What's gone wrong? What did I do wrong?
No, nothing. I think
nothing.
No, they're admitting it.
Are we
It's
moving
made
on?
up.
No, it's just... What, today?
Yeah.
Well, extraordinarily, over the last 5 minutes, Chucker has actually withdrawn his candidacy from the Labour leadership.
This has got to be the most powerful programme on television. We haven't even gone out. At the moment we're appearing in front of 300 people, that's enough to make a man withdraw his candidacy.
Oh, God.
Bad news, they've just shown your video on Have I Got News For You. I resign! I'm away, I'm off.
Do we have any information why he resigned? Why he...
Yeah, Peston called him amateur. He's gone!
It's the next episode of the demise of Theresa May, who's gone from being the Iron Lady to a sort of flatter version, like the Ironed Lady instead.
So nothing is happening. There was a big coup. We thought we were going to get, a new Prime Minister, but no.
It's a bit like a very dull, slow Attenborough, isn't it? Where the same wounded wildebeest just keeps limping across the plain, and the hyenas can't quite get organised enough to kill her off. Basically what it is now.
Yes, it's about the week of plotting and infighting in the Tory party. There was speculation this week that Theresa might demote Boris Johnson in a reshuffle. Why might that not work?
He said he won't be demoted.
That's absolutely right. According to The Telegraph, allies of Boris warned that if May tried to demote him, he would just say no. We learned more about the principal stance Boris Johnson took when he decided to back Brexit last year. What was that?
Well, he confessed to someone that he changed his mind and became a leaver just to annoy Cameron.
Yeah.
Sorry. He confessed it in an interview.
Yes, well, according to the Mail, so... Do you call that an interview?
Can we edit that bit out so people believe it?
Yeah. Well, according to a reputable paper...
Can we edit that bit out as well? It was to Lord Adonis.
Lord Adonis.
Can you imagine being called Lord Adonis?
Hey.
It's quite a lot to live up to in the morning.
Lord Adonis. That's my safe word. I'm only joking. You're never safe with me.
Right, let's get on with the show, and we start with the biggest stories of the week. Ian and Henning take a look at this.
Matt Hancock literally in hot water, trying to wash his hands of it. That's an emergency flight from Turkey, possibly bringing equipment to there. They're just testing.
Yeah, there is the doc from earlier.
This is the growing criticism of the government's handling of the coronavirus crisis. It looks like the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's still convalescing, unable to attend important meetings. So no change there then, Ian.
No, I mean, that was the shock news at the weekend, that he'd missed 5 of these important Cobra meetings and had been too concerned with, Brexit and reshuffling the cabinet and his impending marriage. I mean, he did have a lot on in February, and so there wasn't really time to organise the country in the face of this pandemic. So, yeah, that hasn't gone so well.
No, I think no one can complain because, he didn't get voted in because of his diligence. So... no one can be that surprised. You can say, the Premiership so far has been unmitigated disaster. What did people expect?
So you're blaming the public, Henning. That always makes you popular.
Although there was one crucial decision he was involved in back in March, which was to keep Britain out of talks with the EU to bulk buy protective gear at the beginning of the crisis. That's according to the most senior Foreign Office civil servant, Sir Simon MacDonald, who told us Commons Select Committee this was not a communication error. It was a political decision, although later he admitted that he'd made the claim inadvertently and wrongly. So a communication error of his very own. What is going on, Emma? What's happening?
Well, it's quite an odd thing that after something goes out like that, you can make the claim inadvertently. Were you actually wrong? I don't know. It now just looks quite odd that he said with full confidence to a select committee one thing and then afterwards it wasn't the case. But the thing that they've been very lucky about with that particular situation is no one who signed up to it on time has yet to receive a containment. So what they can now say is, well, look, it didn't make any difference anyway.
Do you not think that everybody's been just looking at old episodes of Yes Minister, in which in the first 5 minutes the civil servant says something that's clearly true, and then the minister tells him that it isn't true after all, and then he remembers that it isn't true at all? And I love the idea that it's, was this a political decision? We could ask him now. Was the fact that you said the opposite straight afterwards, was that a political decision? Michael Gove's performance was fantastic because he's essentially being asked, is the Prime Minister trustworthy? And Gove has spent the last couple of years telling us he isn't. That's why he ran against him. So he had to sit there and say, I can't imagine why any of this would be believed. Well, we can.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock has also been criticised for failing to provide essential equipment for NHS staff. He responded by saying, "I would love to be able to wave a magic wand and have PPE fall from the sky in large quantities." Well, if they haven't locked the doors properly on that flight from Turkey, you may be in luck.
There was a thought, though, that ministers in a report this week in The Telegraph were hanging Matt Hancock out to dry, obviously unnamed ministers.
Yes, there was a big promise about testing, and we were going to have 100,000 tests a day, but so far we haven't done that. We've been something like 18,000, is that right, Emma?
But in the first PMQs, Dominic Raab committed to meeting that target. So, you know, it's only a few days' time, we'll find out.
Thoughts inevitably are now turning towards unlocking the lockdown. The Mail reported that the government are considering a traffic light system. Any idea how that might work, Paul?
Yes, red followed by yellow followed by green. And then repeat the process.
Yeah, and the idea is you sort of gradually ease the country back into go mode. So in the red phase, basically, shops will be allowed to open at first, and hairdressers, thank God, Ian, eh? Then... in the next amber phase, the schools might open. They're talking about May the 25th as a provisional opening date for those. And then finally, the green phase is when the pubs will open. Here it is, as the Sun's report. Pubs shut till Christmas. Oh, and don't worry if you were worried about keeping up with the death toll. They've got that covered as well.
He's been charged with lying, hasn't he?
Yes.
With falsifying, with the big bus with the figure outside that was something like £320 billion a week going through Europe or something like that. So
We'll have to be careful, they'll cut this out, and I don't want anyone to spoil the fun of thinking Boris is going to go to jail for life. So at the moment, we're just at the preliminary hearing stage.
Oh, right, OK.
About whether, when he was a public official, he was telling lies and therefore abusing his office. It should be an interesting trial. I mean, very similar to putting the Pope on trial and saying, "Are you a Catholic?" He was sacked from then sacked from sacked by his own reprimanded.
Ian,
yes,
we're not allowed to say anything that might prejudice the case.
Well, that's absolutely fair enough, because I would like him to have a fair trial with a desirable result of him being imprisoned forever.
Without wishing to prejudice the outcome of the case.
No, because we mustn't do that. I'm not saying he's guilty.
Would you like to see Boris Johnson?
Let's deal with your arguments. One of them is on the side of this bus. We send 350 million to Europe. We don't, and you know we don't. No, we don't. You know we don't. Admit that figure is grotesquely misleading at best.
I won't.
The true figure is 161 million, correct?
No, the true figure is 350 million.
In net terms, the real figure is 161.
If you take out the abatement and the money that comes back, the UK money that comes back via Brussels, the figure is obviously lower.
Matt Lucas is so good.